Now we know how properties work in case of controller inheritance. It's time to move on and understand how we can reuse methods from parent controller or even override the existing one. So I have my simple HTML file. This time also I'm having hierarchy of controllers. Parent div is controlled by array controller and child div is controlled by collection controller. I'm gonna run this first, then I'm gonna split it to understand well. Okay, so you can see I'm showing my array on top, which is getting its initial values from $scope defined on my array controller. Then inside my parent controller div, I have one text input and a button using which we can add a new item in this array. Same thing I'm doing in my collection controller as well. I'm having a text input and a button to add new item to the array. Exception is I'm having one more field called index, which I'm going to use later. So you can see I have defined the add method on parent controller, that is array controller. But I'm calling the same function from parent controller as well as from child controller. So let's add an item from parent controller first. Cool, so the new item is getting added to my array. Let's try the same from child controller view. Awesome, it's also adding the new item to my array. So you can see even if this add function is not written in my child controller, I'm still able to add an item to the array. This is working because of controller inheritance. So when I'm calling this add function from child controller, it's first looking for this function on its $scope object. And it's not there, it's going up in hierarchy and there it's getting the add function. So it's using the parent controller function to add an item in an array. That means using this feature, you can define some of your reusable utility function here on parent controller. And those functions can be used by child controller. Awesome, right? And the story never ends here. If your child controller needs different behavior for the same function, you can override the function in child controller. So I'm going to override the add behavior from parent controller here on my collection controller. Here also I need to add an item to an array, but not at the end, but at some specific position. That's why I have created this number field here, using which I can specify the position where we want to add the item. So I'm going to override the add method in my child controller. And this time I'll pass two parameters to it, name and index. So let me add index here as well. And I'm going to use array.splice method to add new item at index passed as argument. Cool. Let's refresh, enter new name, select the index. There we go. Awesome. So this time it's calling the add method of my child controller and adding the item at specified index. I think this is real simple to understand and it works the same way as inheritance works in other programming languages.